Hey everyone, this is Michael again. Welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And this is going to be a review of last night's edition of Dynamite, which was the July 29th edition. And I caught Dynamite last night at the last hour. I tuned in when Hikaru Shida was taking on Diamante. And I missed the first hour because of work, so I ended up rewatching the whole show earlier. But overall, the show, I thought it was a very good show. It was enjoyable. We had a 10-man tag where we saw the best friends, Chucky T and Trent, and Orange Cassidy, and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy of the Jurassic Express. They ended up taking on the Inner Circle. We saw Cody ended up defending the TNT Championship once again, and he defended against Warhorse, which I never saw any of Warhorse's matches, up until this one that he had with Cody. This is the first time I've seen Warhorse in the ring going at it. So, give my thoughts on that match. And we had a special surprise debut that happened after that match, which I was really happy to see because I even guessed it before this one signed with the company, with AEW. And then we saw Hikaru Shida versus Diamante. MJF ended up having his State of the Industry address, which by far was one of the best promos or the best segments that MJF ended up cutting this year. One of the best segments in pro wrestling for 2020. And we also saw in the main event a very awesome no DQ tornado tag team match where everything went because there was no disqualification. Darby Allen and Jon Moxley teamed up to take on Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. All in all, Dynamite, very good show last night. So let's jump right into the Dynamite review. So Dynamite opened up with the 10-man tag. Best friends, Chucky T and Trent, with Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy of the Jurassic Express versus the Inner Circle, Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Santana, Ortiz, Jake Hager. And this was a fun tag team 10-man tag match. And I had to mention something on commentary. We had Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, and we also had Taz on commentary. No Excalibur. Excalibur wasn't on commentary because of the news that came out with Excalibur. There was a video of him using a racial word that we all know that will not be announced. So he ended up using that racial word, and he is no longer on commentary last night because of that. So Taz ended up replacing Excalibur. But like I said, very fun 10-man tag between best friends, Cassidy, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and the Inner Circle. When the match got underway, we had Hager and Orange Cassidy started off. Orange Cassidy, of course, had his hands in his pockets, and he ended up drop kicking Jake Hager. There was a point where Hager ended up picking up Orange Cassidy. Cassidy ended up striking Hager like in the ears. And then that's when he ended up drop kicking Hager. And Jericho ended up coming in with the tag, ended up cheap shotting on Orange Cassidy. And Jericho here, he was still wearing the jacket with the orange juice on it, as what we saw 2 weeks ago, where that orange juice ended up dropping from the Raptors onto Jericho, staining his $7,000 jacket. So Jericho was still wearing it. Is he going to still keep on wearing it for a month? Next week it'll be possibly 3. Next week it's going to be 3 weeks that if he comes out, he's going to be wearing that jacket. So Jericho got in, cheap shot on Orange Cassidy. Everybody jumped in the ring. There was a brawl. The Inner Circle ended up getting sent out to the floor. Trent ended up delivering a moonsault on the Inner Circle, which was cool. Marco Stunt then ended up getting involved. Sorry about that, but I was saying, Marco Stunt ended up getting involved in the match. You had a point where Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt were on the ring apron. Jungle Boy ends up throwing Marco Stunt onto Jake Hager. Hager ended up catching Marco Stunt, and they were just tossing Marco Stunt around. And Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy were on the ring apron. They end up taking out everybody on the floor. And the end of the match, you had Luchasaurus in the ring along with Sammy Guevara. There was a point where Matt Hardy ended up coming out. Matt Hardy ended up climbing up on the apron, ends up shoving Guevara off the top rope. And then that's when Luchasaurus ended up delivering the choke slam to Guevara. And Luchasaurus ended up delivering a roundhouse kick to Sammy Guevara. Went for the cover. And there you go. The best friends, Orange Cassidy, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy, end up winning this 10-man tag. And once again, Sammy Guevara ends up taking another pin. Sammy Guevara, he's out for a month after the controversy where, the whole Sasha Banks thing with him and that comment that he made about Sasha 4 years ago. So he was off TV for a month, comes back last week, and he's in the match this week. And once again, he takes another pin, takes another loss. There you go. Sammy Guevara taking losses. We all seen it before. Well, overall, it was a fun 10-man tag. Had a lot of fun with it. And then we had the AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. He was backstage, and Moxley ended up saying that he tries to stay out of people's business. He went on to say that if people leave him alone, he will leave them alone. Moxley ended up saying that he thought he was done with Brian Cage. And he ended up saying that Brian Cage and Starks went and beat up on Darby Allen. Moxley ends up calling Ricky Starks a punk bitch and a bully for jumping Darby Allen from behind. Moxley went on to say that he wants to see how they do when the odds are even. He ended up saying that he wants to see how Ricky Starks and Brian Cage do when the odds are even up. So that was what Moxley had to say. Pretty good promo from Moxley. And then we had the TNT Championship on the line. Cody versus Warhorse. And this is the first match that I have seen with Warhorse in it. Haven't watched any of Warhorse's matches. But I have to say, in this match, Warhorse I really enjoyed what he had to bring in this match with Cody. And the match began with Warhorse getting Cody to the ropes. Cody came back, ended up doing a wrist lock to Warhorse. Warhorse ended up rolling and kicking out of that wrist lock. Cody then ended up throwing Warhorse into the corner, and he goes to chop at Warhorse. But Warhorse ended up delivering a chop to Cody's back, and then he did a chop to Cody's chest. There was a point where Warhorse did a double knee strike to Cody's neck, which looked brutal. And at the end of the match, Cody ended up locking in the figure four. Warhorse ended up tapping out. So there you go. Cody ended up winning the match, retaining the TNT Championship. Of course, Arn Anderson was out there. But the match itself, it was a pretty good match. Warhorse ended up getting some offense here in this match, along with Cody. But he did pretty good, Warhorse. There you go. Cody retains the TNT Championship. And we're going to be moving on to the next opponent that Cody challenges for the TNT Championship. Who will it be? We will find out. We will find out maybe next week, of course. So post-match, Cody ended up going to shake hands with Warhorse. Warhorse ended up tossing him aside because John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order, they end up coming into the ring. Warhorse ended up going to fight off Silver and Reynolds, but he then ended up getting thrown out of the ring by Silver and Reynolds. And then we see the debut of Matt Cardona, who we all knew as Zack Ryder in WWE. And I actually predicted this. I actually was right. Because I said, because I was talking with one of my friends, I was saying, since Zack Ryder was released from WWE and, all these others during Black Thursday, I was like, where would you want them to go? And I said, I see Zack Ryder going to AEW. And look what happened. He showed up last night on Dynamite, and I was right. So, really happy to see Matt Cardona in AEW. So he ended up coming out to the ring, and he ended up taking out Silver and Reynolds. And that was that. But really happy that Matt Cardona is now part of AEW. I think they're gonna use him better here than how WWE handled him when he was Zack Ryder. Although he was still fun as Zack Ryder with the whole woo woo woo, it. But Matt Cardona still looks in good shape. He's one of Cody's best friends. Really am interested to see Matt Cardona in a match, which he's going to be in a match next week on Dynamite, which I will get to explain in the match that he's going to be in. And then we had Tony Schiavone. He was on stage, and the Inner Circle ended up coming out. And the group was in a bad mood after losing their match earlier in the night, the 10-man tag. So Chris Jericho ended up saying that in 2 weeks, there will be a rematch between him and Orange Cassidy. So we're going to be getting Jericho and Cassidy Part 2, which the first match, I'd say, is one of Jericho's best matches in AEW so far. And that match was just really good, very entertaining. And who knows if Part 2 is going, if that Part 2 match with them in 2 weeks is going to top their first match that they had. We'll just have to wait and see. So Sammy Guevara, he ended up calling Matt Hardy a son of a bitch. And he ended up saying that he's not finished with Matt Hardy. So Jericho then ends up saying that next week there's going to be a debate with him and Orange Cassidy. And that there will be a special guest moderator for the debate. So we're going to be seeing that next week. that's going to be pretty funny next week. And that was that. Then we saw FTR, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, and this was done earlier in the day. FTR was looking to sign their AEW contracts, and they end up bringing their advisor, who is Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson ends up walking in as their advisor to look things over in the contracts. Tony Schiavone was the moderator for this meeting. So FTR ended up saying that on August 12th. August 12th is going to be a tag team appreciation night that's going to be hosted by them, by FTR. So then we saw Hangman and Page. He ended up coming in, and he bought in some whiskey for them to help celebrate their signing with AEW. So that was that. So there you go. August 12th is going to be Tag Team Appreciation Night hosted by Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, known as FTR. That's good. They end up celebrating their signing with AEW. So they're now signed with AEW. So it's pretty cool. So then we had the AEW World Tag Team Championship on the line. Hangman and Page and Kenny Omega defending the titles against Evil Uno and Stu Grayson of the Dark Order. And this was a pretty good tag team match. We had Hangman and Page come out first, and he ended up getting attacked. Omega finally came out and helped him out. And Page ended up seeming a little annoyed by how long it took Omega to come out. So we saw Evil Uno then end up jumping Kenny Omega, and Evil Uno end up working on Omega. Matt and Nick Jackson, Young Bucks, they were in the stands looking on. And Colt Cabana joined commentary for the match. And there was a point where JR on commentary ended up asking Colt Cabana if he's in the Dark Order. So Cabana ended up telling JR that he is just hanging out right now. And I originally thought that Colt Cabana is in the Dark Order, since he's with Brody Lee and the rest of the Dark Order. Turns out he ends up saying that he's just hanging out right now. So technically, he is not part of the Dark. He's not part of the Dark Order. So maybe this is going to be, a swerve from Colt Cabana to Brody Lee and the rest of the Dark Order, and maybe this is just a setup for Cabana to get his hands on Brody Lee in a future match. So just by that saying, where Cabana was saying, "Oh, I'm just hanging out right now." So it could be maybe Cabana playing Brody Lee and the Dark Order. Who knows? That's my prediction right there. So, but somehow Brody Lee was out there, the exalted one, Brody Lee, and for some reason, Anna Jay looks to be in the Dark Order now for whatever reason. It was never explained why she is now part of the Dark Order. So we saw Hangman and Page. He was beating the hell out of Stu Grayson, ended up knocking Grayson out to the floor, delivered a cross-body dive, and then Evil Uno ended up throwing Page into the ring post. And it just went back and forth between these guys. And at the end of the match, you had Page and Omega end up delivering the V-Trigger buckshot lariat on Evil Uno. And there you go. Hangman and Page and Kenny Omega end up winning the match, retaining the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Post-match, Brody Lee ended up telling Colt Cabana and Anna Jay to head to the back, which they did. Brody Lee was then yelling at Evil Uno and Stu Grayson on the stage. Brody Lee ended up throwing papers on Evil Uno's head. He gets on the mic. Brody Lee got on the mic, and he ended up asking Page if he thinks that's funny. He ended up saying that he sees Page has his friends with him this week. So Matt and Nick Jackson end up heading to the ring from the stands of the Daily's Place. Brody Lee ended up saying that the Dark Order is everywhere, and that the Dark Order has strengthened in numbers. So Brody Lee ended up saying that he's pissed off, and now they will pay. So we had the Dark Order guys surround the ring, and we had Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, FTR. They end up running out. They end up smashing a cooler, an ice chest over the back of Brody Lee's head. FTR end up getting into the ring and helping the Elite to get rid of the Dark Order guys, or Dark Order followers. So Brody Lee ended up laughing, and Brody Lee and the Elite end up jawing at each other. Brody Lee and the Dark Order were on the stage. The Elite were in the ring, along with FTR. And that was that. But it was a pretty good tag team match between Page and Omega versus Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. And then we saw Brit Baker. Brit Baker was in her Rolls Royce. She was sitting at ringside with Reba. She ended up getting on the mic, and she ended up talking about, of course, Big Swole. Brit Baker ended up saying that she knows Big Swole is obsessed with her, and how Big Swole really wants to get her hands on her. She ended up saying that Big Swole can get a shot at her in the ring down the road, but only if Big Swole defeats an opponent of Brit Baker's choice. So Big Swole will have to go through an opponent of Brit Baker's choice in order for Big Swole to get a match with Brit Baker. So, which that's eventually going to be happening at All Out. So it's definitely happening between Brit Baker and Big Swole. And we're going to be seeing that at All Out. So that was that. And then we had a promo from Diamante. Diamante ended up saying that she's been busting her ass on the indies for 10 years. She ended up saying a win over Hikaru Shida will shoot her to the top of the rankings. Diamante ended up saying that the other woman should fear her because she's got nothing to lose and everything to prove. She ended up saying, as they say, pressure makes diamonds. So that was a promo that Diamante cut. Pretty good promo. And then we went to the match. Hikaru Shida versus Diamante. This was where I tuned in last night. And this match itself, it was a pretty decent women's match. You had the match start out with Hikaru Shida looking to shake hands with Diamante. Diamante ended up shoving Hikaru Shida's hand away. Shida was then thrown into the ropes from Diamante. Shida ends up turning Diamante and landing some strikes. They end up brawling. Hikaru Shida ended up heading out to the floor. At the end of the match, Hikaru Shida ended up delivering a running knee to Diamante's face. There you go. Hikaru Shida ended up picking up the win. Pretty decent women's match. And then after Hikaru Shida versus Diamante, commentators Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, Taz went over the rules of the AEW Women's Tag Team Cup Tournament. So they went over that the tournament is a random draw, and that all the women competitors, must each draw a color. And the matching colors will become a team. And the selections of the women who draw their color are final. And they cannot be appealed. So this is going to be interesting to see. You know, something very different. We'll see how this tag team cup tournament, this women's tag team cup tournament is going to, be. So that's all. So that's the other rules of the women's tag team cup tournament. So they all have to each draw a color. And then we had Nyla Rose along with Vicky Guerrero. We saw Nyla Rose end up drawing the purple color for the tournament. Sorry about that, but I was saying Nyla Rose ended up drawing the purple color for the tag team, for the women's tag team cup tournament. She ends up saying who her partner will be, and it was revealed that her partner is going to be Ariane Andrew, of course known as former WWE superstar Cameron. When she was in WWE, she was Cameron. She was alongside Naomi. They were originally the Funkadactyls. Along with Brodus Clay, when Brodus Clay was part of WWE. Now he's known as Tyrus. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see Cameron or Ariane Andrew there. So it's been a while since I've seen her on TV. So that's Nyla Rose's partner in the tournament. And then we went to one of the best segments in pro wrestling for this year. And it was MJF giving his State of the Industry address. So he heads to the ring, has a podium there in the ring. MJF ends up letting the fans know how dumb they are. So he ends up calling out some of the pro wrestling fans, or he was referring to as marks, and he's right about these wrestling marks who like chant for everything, even if it's terrible. So he then gives his speech, and he ends up mentioning his hashtag, 2 hashtags. One was MJF 2020, and his other hashtag is not my champion. And he got to explain why not my champion came to be. He ended up saying that there's a reason why he's not given the spotlight for 2 weeks in a row. And that's because a certain someone doesn't want the spotlight taken from him. So MJF ended up talking about there needing to be change. One man in particular called for a paradigm shift. So, of course, he was talking about Jon Moxley. So MJF ended up saying that AEW has gone from a revolution to a dictatorship. He ended up saying because a guy like Jon Moxley can do whatever he wants and face whoever he wants. So MJF then admitted that Jon Moxley is one of the best in the world. So MJF ended up saying that there's been a lot of negative side effects since Jon Moxley has become the AEW World Champion. He ended up saying that wrestling has gone downhill as wrestlers come out and flip-flop and fly until they die. And, he's right about that. MJF was right about that. And, you see some of these wrestlers, they're flip-flopping all over the place, flying. He's right about that. He ends up saying that fans are now brainwashed that those things are what makes a good professional. He ends up saying that he doesn't have to play wrestle, though, because he's undefeated. So then he ends up talking about the ratings. Of course, Jericho had to mention the ratings, and now MJF is now mentioning about the ratings. And he ended up saying that he actually draws better minute by minute than dictator Jon Moxley. He ended up saying that Moxley doesn't want that out, though. He ended up saying that the old guard is what has hurt societies in the past. And that's exactly what is happening with Moxley. MJF ended up saying that he's the one who will be leading AEW for the next 25 years. He bleeds black, white, and gold. He ended up saying that AEW needs to transform itself into the pinnacle of professional wrestling. So then MJF ends up challenging Jon Moxley to a title match for the AEW World Championship. And he ends up saying to Moxley that he'll see him at All Out. There you go. That's going to be made official. MJF versus Moxley, AEW World Championship on the line at All Out. It's definitely going to be happening. But very good promo segment from MJF. This is one of the best segments of the year, in my opinion. This was just MJF spinning out, some facts, with the wrestling fans, with the marks, and how some of the wrestlers are flip-flopping around and flying, out of, the ring with their moves. So he was making sense here, MJF. And after watching this last night, I just had to go back and rewatch it again. It was just that good of a segment with MJF. He delivered one hell of, promos, in this segment. But really loved it. Really loved it. So then they went out for what we're going to see on Dynamite next week. So of course next week, we're going to get the debate with Jericho and Orange Cassidy. There's going to be a special guest moderator. Matt Cardona is going to be in the match. He's going to be tagging with Cody versus John Silver and Alex Reynolds. So I guess Cody is not going to be defending the TNT Championship next week. MJF is going to give another, I guess, state of the industry address next week. And we're going to see a 12-man tag. FTR, the Young Bucks, Hangman, Adam Page, and Kenny Omega versus the Dark Order. So we're going to be seeing all that next week on Dynamite. And then we went to the main event. The no DQ Tornado Tag Team match. Jon Moxley and Darby Allen versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. And this was a very good Tornado Tag Team match. No disqualification. No Tornado Tag Team match. This was just awesome. You had before the match, Taz ends up saying that Darby Allen is not here tonight because Darby's music ended up playing. He didn't even come out. So Taz ended up going on to say that Darby Allen was not there because he got his ass kicked last week. So Taz starts hyping up, Brian Cage. Ricky Starks ends up taking the mic, ends up talking Moxley. So Cage and Starks end up heading out to the ring. And then we see Darby Allen leaping off the stage set, hits both Cage and Starks, delivering a coffin drop to both Cage and Starks. So Darby Allen was, there last night, even though Taz ended up saying that he wasn't. So this was a back and forth match. We had Cage end up sending a garbage can into the ring to Ricky Starks, and they end up lifting Moxley, and both Cage and Starks end up delivering an Alabama slam to Moxley on the garbage can. So then later on, Darby Allen ends up going under the ring, and he ends up pulling out a skateboard. He ends up pulling out a skateboard from under the ring, and underneath the skateboard were thumbtacks, which that's cool. That's original, because we see, some of the wrestlers, when they take out thumbtacks, it's usually in a bag and they just pour it, at the middle of the ring. That was original, seeing thumbtacks under a skateboard. So Moxley was shown locking in a armbar on Cage. Darby Allen ended up going to the top, and he leapt off the top rope, and he ends up doing a double stomp on the skateboard, and the thumbtacks go into Ricky Starks' back. So Darby Allen ended up making the cover. There you go. You had Darby Allen and Jon Moxley end up winning the match, and you saw a close-up of the thumbtacks in Ricky Starks' back. He was bleeding instantly from that. So post-match, Darby Allen was looking at Moxley. He ends up pointing at Moxley. And on commentary, they end up saying that Tony Khan has signed a match for next week. And next week, we're going to be seeing Moxley versus Darby Allen, and the AEW World Championship is going to be on the line. So that's going to be a awesome match to see next week. Moxley is going to come out retaining the title, of course. But we saw Moxley and Darby Allen in the middle of the ring. They were facing off. And that's how Dynamite ended last night. But very good show Dynamite was. And that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. And definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, which will be the SmackDown review, I will see you all tomorrow night with the SmackDown review.